Alright, so solve quadratic equations by completing the square. Here we've got a very basic completing the square problem up on the board. Alright, notice that there is a 1 in front of the x squared as a coefficient. When we complete the square, this is my style. It's not the only way that you can do it. I'm just teaching you what I think is the best way. I think it's wise to get everything away from your x values. So when we do that, we need to move this negative 8 to the other side. When I move something to the other side of an equation, I change the sign. So what I'm going to have is x squared plus 6x with a blank equal to 8. All right, I move that negative 8 over. I have now an 8 on the right side. Okay, here's where completing the square comes in. We want to make this into a perfect square trinomial. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to take half of 6.
3 squared is 9.
There you go. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides of this equation. Alright, so once we have added 9 to both sides, now we can write this perfect square trinomial as the square of a binomial. So it's going to be x. What else is going to be in there with the x?
Plus 3.
Plus 3. Because half of whatever that x coefficient is, that goes inside the parentheses. So x plus 3 squared, and that's going to equal 17. Alright, now, the next step is to take the square root of both sides. When I do that, I'm left with x plus 3 on the left equal to the root of 17 on the right with a plus minus in front of it. I've got to include the plus minus because if I don't, I won't end up with 2 solutions. I only have 1 solution. Since it's a quadratic, I need 2 solutions. Alright? So, I'm going to subtract 3 from each side. So I'm going to end up with x equals negative 3 plus minus the root of 17. I cannot simplify that any further. That is it. Okay? Negative 3 plus minus root 17. Where did I get 3 from?
17.
8 plus 9 is 17.
Oh, no, set.
Alright? So that's that. It's pretty simple. This one can't be simplified any further because we can't simplify the root of 17. Alright, let's go on to another problem. Alright, in this problem, it's not any different than the previous problem. We're going to do the same thing, and that is we're going to move the 11 over, and when I move it to the other side, what do I get?
X squared. Blank equals 11.
Negative 11. Don't forget the negative. Now, you don't have to write the little blank, okay? The little line for the blank. That's just understand, leave yourself a little room when you rewrite it. Now, this problem's a little different in that instead of having an even coefficient, I have an odd coefficient. So, I'm just going to take half of it just like I always do and square it. It's no big deal. It's just going to be a decimal. So, what's half of negative 5? 2.5. So, I'm going to have negative 2.5 squared, which gives me 6.25. So, I'm going to add 6.25 to both sides. And I want you to notice that we are never going to subtract on both sides. We're only going to add on both sides. Because if I square a negative, I get a positive. If I square a positive, I get a positive. Okay, so I'm always getting positives when I square. So I'm always adding. Okay, now we can write the left side as the square of a binomial. So you're going to have x, and it's going to be minus 2.5. Squared equals negative 11 plus 6.25 comes out to be a negative 4.75. Alright? So once we're in this position, we can take the square root of both sides because we want to undo the square term. That leaves x minus 2.5 equal to plus minus I on the root of 4.75. Because when we take the square root of a negative, we get I. Don't forget, Don't forget the I. Alright, so the last step is to undo this left side. We're going to add 2.5 to both sides. So x equals 2.5 plus minus I. That's it. Okay? This is square root that goes over all of it. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so x squared minus 8x, and then you're going to have negative 3 on the right side. You're going to take half of negative 8 and square it. So you're adding 16 to both sides. So then we can take the perfect square trinomial and write it as the square of a binomial. Okay, take the square root of both sides. X minus 4 equals plus minus root 13. Because we can't simplify the root of 13. So it's just square root plus minus square root of the same thing. Add 4 to both sides. So x equals 4 plus minus root 13. Don't forget the plus minus. If you do, it's wrong. Because that's only one solution. If you don't put the minus part, you're only getting one solution. Now, I'm not making you write it out in two different expressions. I'm not making you do this. Because every math person on the planet that knows anything about math knows what this means. So it's not necessary for you to write it out as two separate expressions, even though that's what it really is. It's really 4 plus root 13 and then 4 minus root 13. Now here's the thing. If you can ever simplify this, if it ever allows you to simplify like we will see later on, then you always simplify. You never leave it in an unsimplified form.
Now how would you simplify it?
Well, if it can be simplified, you'll see that later. All right, look at number 4. You can do it. All right, what's special about this one? Why is this beneficial, helpful?
It's already on both.
It's already
It doesn't have the 0. They've already moved away everything that needs to be moved away from the x squared minus 7x.
Yeah.
So go ahead and finish it.
Thank you, Robert.
X squared.
We're one step ahead. Okay, take a look at number 5. Now, in this problem, we've got a different situation going on. There is a number in front of x squared. And when it comes to completing the square, you are not allowed to complete the square when there's a number in front of x squared.
No, you can't do that.
You can only have a coefficient of 1, nothing other than 1. So with that, what we need to do is divide everything by 2. That's going to get rid of the 2. It's going to change the way this equation looks, but it's okay. So we're going to divide everything by 2. Alright, so what I'm left with is x squared minus 5x plus 5 equals 0 again. Okay, now it's back to normal.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just move it together. So we're going to move that 5 over. So we're going to have x squared minus 5x with a space equals negative 5. Okay. Because I got to move it over. Exactly. Change sides, change signs. Okay, so half of negative 5 is negative 2.5. Squared comes out to be positive 6.25. We had one like that earlier. That's why I know it. All right. So then x minus, don't forget to put the minus, 2.5 squared equals 1.25. Take the square root of both sides. X minus 2.5 equals plus minus root 1.25. Final step. Add 2.5 to both sides. So x equals 2.5 plus minus root 1.25.
Really easy, Coach.
So easy. Just make sure you're careful with your signs. If I have a negative coefficient, that means in parentheses I'm going to have a negative. If I have a positive coefficient, in parentheses I'm going to have a positive. Alright, that's pretty much everything you need to know about completing the square, solving equations by completing the square. I mean, we're not going to get any more